Hello everyone, good evening. Welcome to Old Trafford Odyssey. I'm Ankit and this is your latest Manchester United news. Now unfortunately today guys, you're going to be stuck with just my face and I hope you like it because it's going to be a long one. So where do we begin? So much to get into. There's so much happening right now around our club with the transfer window officially open and this Manchester United takeover sale, which seems to have more twists and turns and ups and downs than a bloody roller coaster. And let me tell you what, this entire mess that the Manchester United sale is not just the fault of the Glazers. I mean, obviously, they are the leaders. They're leading this entire mess, but we all knew with the Glazers, right? We kind of expected this. It's like a typical goodbye by the Glazers where it's never ending. It's just stretching and stretching and stretching with so much tips and turns and, with almost everybody frustrated around the club, whether it's certain people working at the club, whether it's players, whether it's journalists, whether it's Sir Jim Ratcliffe, whether it's the Qataris, everybody, literally everybody is absolutely fed up, but they're not solely responsible. Along with the Glazers, the people who've actually made this much worse and so chaotic is the absolutely disgraceful English media and mainstream agenda-based biased journalism. Right. How but? Let me tell you. So about 24 hours ago, there's this story that broke out. Let me just put that on your screen. Right there. So as you guys can see, about 24 hours or so ago, Reuters came out with this exclusive story that Manchester United negotiating exclusivity with Qatar's Sheikh Jassim in a $6 billion plus sale talk. What does this mean? And who are these guys? Like, who's Reuters? If for all of you guys that don't know who Reuters are, let me make this simple for you. So basically, Reuters is a business news outlet. And when I say business news outlet, they are not just any outlet reporting business news. These guys are top tier one. These guys are like the Fabrizio Romano of news, basically of business news. These guys don't mess around. So about 24 hours ago, these guys have come out with a story saying that, Manchester United are negotiating exclusivity with Qatar. Once this broke out, immediately, it took no time for the entire English and mainstream media to completely pounce and deny the story. Everybody from the likes of Simon Stone, Ben Jacobs, Mike Keegan, there's so many around this story where everybody started to come out and started reporting that this is not true. They started reporting saying that still around this sale, nobody has any sort of idea as to what's happening. And in a way, they're right. They are clueless. And this last 24 hours has made it so convincing for me that I am absolutely convinced that the English media and mainstream journalism are absolutely clueless as to what's going on behind the closed doors of that Manchester United sale. They have absolutely no idea. Every outlet out there is just wrapping up their personal opinions as exclusive or breaking news. They're all just reporting things that support their own narrative. Whether it's Sir Jim Ratcliffe, whether it's Qataris, they all have their own agendas and they've only been reporting based on speculation and based on their personal agendas. They have no clue. And you're talking about news coming out of Reuters. These guys don't mess around. They have no agenda. They have nothing to do with the footballing world. They aren't here to manipulate the fans or anybody. They're just a business news reporting business news. And let me break this for you. Manchester United sale, it's a business transaction. It's a business sale. So whom do you have to believe? Whom do you believe? Whether do you believe the mainstream English footballing news, or do you believe business news? I'll tell you. Business transaction, business sale, business news. Make sense? It's simple, guys. It's pretty simple. These guys do not get their news out from the bidders, Sheikh Jassim, or from Sir Jim Ratcliffe. That's English football. The reason why English media has no clue is because they're getting nothing out of their sources. Who are the sources? The sources are going to be somebody from the camp of either Sheikh Jassim or somebody from the camp of Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And these guys are all tight-lipped, as we all know. The Glazers do not want to clear anything up. They don't want anybody, any news out there that confirms a preferred bidder, because we all know all that they've been trying to do is get more out of the sale, the most money possible. So it's in their best interest to not announce a preferred bidder and take this right down to the end. So let me put this up. So after Reuters came out with this news, we had Time Sports reporting Sir Jim Ratcliffe remains the favorite to complete the Manchester United takeover, and this was like about an odd 20 hours ago. So according to Time Sports, it's still Sir Jim who's leading. That's the news they came out with. Now Reuters aren't backing away. They aren't taking a step back. In the last 24 hours, Reuters has constantly been tweeting from their Twitter account with the same thing, backing their story, that what they said and what they still believe in what they said. That in this sale, Glazers are negotiating exclusivity with Sheikh Jassim, and Qataris seem to be leading. And my personal opinion, I will go with the business news outlets on a business transaction. Now, once the English media, Time Sport, and all these outlets started completely refuting these stories coming out from Reuters, we had another source coming out, which again, this is another source that I would put my bet on. This is coming from Faisal Islam, who's the BBC Sports economic editor, who's been saying again, in the last 24 hours, he's been saying the Qataris are in pole position to buy Manchester United. If everything stopped right now, Qataris have won. But what we're seeing is consistent with the idea of a message being sent out to Ineos. You have a chance to stop this and change our minds. This right there is exactly what I believe is happening with this sale. Everything that you're hearing from these business outlets is true. As of now, it's the Qataris who seem to be leading this race. Faisal Islam has also, used an analogy, a footballing analogy, to describe what's going on. More like Qataris have scored a third goal and they're leading 3-2 at the 89th minute. So basically, we have Qataris leading. There is talks going on the background where, like reported by Reuters, where the Glazers are negotiating probably exclusivity with Qataris, but it's still not over. What this news coming out right now, as Faisal Islam says, it's sort of like, what we expect from the Glazers, wherein they don't want to put it out there and they don't want to officially announce a preferred bidder, and all they're doing is what he said, where it's like a subtle message to Sir Jim Ratcliffe that, look, we are probably, Qataris are leading right now and we are going with them. So you can stop that if you want. All you got to do is just pick that phone up and maybe put another bid in that's a bit higher. And this can go on and on and on forever. I mean, there's no end to this, right? Which is why the Qataris are frustrated, and which is why they're demanding exclusivity, which is why they're trying to negotiate this exclusivity with the Glazers, because they don't want this to keep happening over and over. Wherein, at once Sir Jim's favorite and the Qataris put in a new bid, boom, suddenly the Qataris are favorite. Now the Qataris are favorite. Sir Jim goes and puts in another bid. Boom. Now Sir Jim's the favorite. Tomorrow again Qataris, then Sir Jim, then Qataris, then Sir Jim. This is gonna just keep going on and on and on and on and will never end. At some point, unless Sir Jim or Qataris, one of them backs out of their bid, this will never end. And that is what is really frustrating everybody, the people around the club and the Qataris as well. And that's exactly why they're demanding exclusivity. Also reported by Faisal Islam is that it is inaccurate that the 9-2 Trading UK Limited's application was filed months ago. So what is this? This is basically, yesterday another news was broken out that the 9-2 Foundation was actually, they got registered as a company in the UK yesterday. And once again, English media was immediate to pounce on and give us reports that said that, this is not true. Like the Qataris have, filed this application months ago, and it's just a process that you have to go through if, you have to take over the club. I agree. It is a process that you need to go through. But again, coming from business outlets and business news and Faisal Islam, he doesn't believe this to be true, because what he believes is it was this application of the 9-2 Foundation was received for electronic filing yesterday, which normally takes about 24 hours to be registered. So if that is what is coming out, and if it only takes 24 hours and the application was sent in just a few hours ago, just yesterday, by the 9-2 Foundation, then why are we hearing it from English media again and again that this is not the case and that they filed it months ago? Whom do you believe? All the English media is doing is just tying United fans in a knot, creating divide, and reporting out of their own narrative and agenda. So we've got Vidyut saying that, Glazers out now. I'm sure you're with the majority there. We all hope that, they are out of this club as soon as possible. We all want this to end right now. It's been dragging since 7 months, and English media and their agendas. It's disgraceful. It's so sad to see where, journalism and media outlets and reporting has come down to. It's extremely petty. So where we are at now, to conclude this takeover mess and the stories coming in, let's put this clear right now that currently it looks like the Qataris are in the front row. They're leading this race. They're really close, and we are in the end game, unless Sir Jim Ratcliffe comes with a new and improved bid, or unless the Glazers actually agree to the Qatari negotiations and give them exclusivity, which then stops the Glazers from discussing and negotiating this sale with anybody else. So once again, this can change. Maybe tomorrow it can completely change if Sir Jim Ratcliffe comes and puts another bid. But right now, contrary to all reports from English media, the Qataris seem to lead the race. Even the stock prices suggest so. You can't have the stock prices rise by about over 15% and stay there for 3 days based on a single tweet, as the English media claims. I mean, that's just hilarious, right? You're telling me that there are about millions of shares being traded of Manchester United on the stock market, and the English media believes this is based on a single tweet. These guys aren't fools. These guys are business people. These guys are traders who do this regularly. You're talking about millions of trades. These guys are smart people. They have this general belief, which is the general consensus in the market, that the Qataris are leading, and which is why they're buying shares of Manchester United, because the share price only goes up when news of Qataris being favorites comes in, because the Qatari bid is the only one that is going to even buy out the shares that are held in the New York Stock Exchange. So obviously the Qatari bid will value the shares at a higher price, because they're buying the entire club. So once again, I would just say that, despite all the mess and the news and reports out there, this is the one on your screen right now by Reuters. That is what I would go with. These guys are absolutely legit when it comes to their reporting. So they are whom I would believe. Moving on from the takeover sale, let's get into the transfer news, which is again become absolutely chaotic. And I mean, I feel for Erik ten Hag, right? I mean, the man has done, like, he's actually made miracles this year. The season that he's had, the start that he had, the squad that he inherited, one of the worst Manchester United squads that we have ever seen. He inherits that squad. He goes through an entire chaotic saga of Cristiano Ronaldo and the mess around things, and pulls out a rabbit from the hat by getting us third in the Premier League and a Carabao Cup trophy. Not to mention the final that we made it, an FA Cup final and a quarterfinal of your Europa League that we should have won if our players had showed up that day. So, I mean, the man has done everything and he absolutely deserves backing in this transfer window. But what's been happening? Absolutely nothing. As usual, we're a joke. We're a joke in this market. The transfer tax, the Manchester United tax, the moment anybody knows that Manchester United is coming for their player as a club, you know that, Manchester United is coming for my player, or a player knows that Manchester United is coming for me, the tax, the price just shoots up. I mean, just look at Højlund. We all know that Manchester United has been interested in Rasmus Højlund. Now, the moment this picks up heat, the moment, it gets clear that, it does not look like Manchester United are going to go end up with Harry Kane or Victor Osimhen, and it looks more likely that Manchester United are heading for Rasmus Højlund. Atlanta hold meetings, and suddenly they want about 85 million pounds, 100 million euros for Højlund. That's what we are in this market. Two players and two clubs. We're a joke. They know that, we can't negotiate for shit. So they all want to hold you for ransom, and they know you're desperate. They can smell you a mile away. They can smell you miles away, how desperate we are. And this is what needs to change with new owners. Now, there's been so many reports when it comes to our transfers, the budgets, reports coming out of English media that the United budget is about 100, 120 or a cap of 150 odd million. Now, despite all reports, I still believe that irrespective of who owns us, we will still spend close to or slightly north of 200 million. But that's about it. And that is not enough. With the exorbitant prices that Manchester United always has to pay for players, 200 million is not enough. And this is going to be sort of like a stinker for all these fans who are expecting the Qatari sale to happen and are hoping that if that goes through, Manchester United's summer transfer window might be saved and we might end up spending like about 300 or 400 or half a billion. That's not going to happen. I don't want to spoil, sorry to spoil your bubble, but that isn't going to happen. Even if the Qataris do end up owning us, with reports coming in, it's already clear that it will take about an odd 12 weeks for the entire process, for the Premier League tests, owners tests, etc. All of this to go through, for the paperwork and everything to be done. It will still take about an odd 12 weeks at least. So basically, we are spending this summer transfer window under the Glazers, and we're going to be spending maybe the first few games of the next season also under the Glazers, even if the Qataris do end up winning this bid. It's already too late. We've already messed it up. I mean, the entire saga and this entire delay with the sale has already messed this transfer window up. We're already losing out of players one after the others. Erik ten Hag's number one targets are all being swooped up by rival clubs, because Manchester United is stuck in this takeover saga, which seems to never end. A media circus created by the mainstream and English media and Glazers. So we're completely stuck We have no clue what our budget will be. We have no clue what will happen with the players. Now, obviously, if we get bought by the Qataris, there will be, clearance of debt, which will probably add a little to our transfer budget and player outgoings. But again, with player outgoings, how do you know exactly what your outgoings are till you don't know who's going to take you away? We don't know. Because, if Sir Jim Ratcliffe ends up getting the club, he's going to keep the Glazers. The debt on the club is still going to stay. So we cannot go and sell somebody like a Harry Maguire for extremely cheap and loss amount because they're listed as asset on that debt. On the other hand, if the Qataris do come over, that debt is completely cleared. And the Qataris can just pay players like Harry Maguire their wages and be like, even if you don't want to take a wage cut, you're not in our plans, here are your wages, we're going to pay you. That's the door. And that's what we need. But we're not going to know that until this entire saga comes to an end. So again, Manchester United have completely messed the takeover saga. Now, in the past 24 hours, we've lost so many of targets of our, of Eric Ten Hag's important targets. So let's start with Moses Caicedo. This is coming in from Fabrizio Romano that Chelsea are advancing on a deal with Manchester United target Moises Caicedo. Talks progressing on the player side, contract proposals made, personal terms close to being agreed, deal not done yet. Will take time, but Chelsea expect to negotiate for about £80 million. Packed with De Zerbi will guarantee to leave. So Declan Rice is going to Arsenal. Caicedo seems like he's going to Chelsea now. These are the sort of deals we can't do anymore because these aren't like, smaller deals. So we can't do deals like that until we know what our budget is, what we can actually spend. Kim Min-jae, again, coming in from Fabrizio, understand Bayern have presented their project to Kim Min-jae this week and the agreement on personal terms is now closed. Kim tempted by Bayern as talks are now advancing fast. Manchester United remain interested, but it was never done. Release clause available in July. That's a bargain, right? A player like Kim Min-jae is available for 42 million. But what can we do? Because we cannot go and spend about 42 million on Kim Min-jae unless we understand what's happening with Harry Maguire, who looks reluctant to go. Once again, that's another player gone because we have no clue what's happening in our club. We're a mess. Harry Kane, again coming in from Fabrizio. Manchester United are currently looking at other options for a new striker as Harry Kane deal is not advancing at all. Manchester United feel Spurs never wanted to sell Kane and have no plans to enter into a 2-month saga. And I agree. We shouldn't be spending about 2.5 months chasing Harry Kane. That too, when Spurs seem like, it's going to be an exorbitant fee for a 30-year-old player that's got just 1 year on his deal. I wouldn't want a striker to coming in on the first week of August or maybe end of August where we've already had first few of our games gone and the entire preseason gone. We need as many of our transfers as possible to actually go to the preseason with Eric Ten Hag, because that's the state of the squad. We don't know how to create chances for a striker. So we need a striker and we need to fix that in this preseason. But now again, the entire situation with the striker is again chaotic and seems like we might not get the targets, the striker targets that we want. Our main targets were Harry Kane and Kim Min-jae, and both seem unlikely because of the exorbitant fees and because of this entire mess that this takeover saga is. And don't forget, guys, do not forget, why are we here? The whole reason why this entire transfer window has been jeopardized and why our next season might be jeopardized as well. Why this takeover saga is going to affect not just this transfer window, but probably even our next season, is thanks to Sir Jim Ratcliffe. He is the man who's given Glazers that option to stay. He is the one who's given them this chance to stay and to use his bid to suck as much money as possible out of the Qataris. The Glazers are just playing both bidders off of each other, right? So I mean, again, if that option to stay was not there, we probably would have had a much faster resolution to this Manchester United sale. So again, why are we here? There's only one man responsible for that. Now, today, coming in today, there is so much news around David De Gea, our goalkeeping situation. That's again become a lot chaotic. So today, there's been a lot of news coming on that David De Gea seems set to leave Manchester United. So David De Gea was not included in the list of Manchester United's retained players for the next season. Now that's, that has sparked a lot. However, what people need to understand is that the reason that he's not on the retained list is because his contract's not signed yet. It's still under negotiation. So they can't put him on that list, because if they put him on that list and David De Gea does not end up signing that contract, he's not a Manchester United player. So which is why he's not put on that list yet. But there have been heavy reports coming in from all around mainstream media today that suggest that David De Gea is leaving. Now, I know our fan base is completely split on David De Gea. I know you're completely split as to some want him to stay, some want him to go. I completely have always been, vocal and completely have said always that, I understand the sentiment of wanting a modern keeper and, wanting to move on from David De Gea. I absolutely agree with that. I know that, we need to move on at some point and we need a keeper who's better playing out from the back with his feet. But the amount of criticism, the amount of hate that I've been seeing for David De Gea on Twitter and the mainstream media is just criminal. It's ridiculous. It's a disgrace. I've even seen some tweets out there that, are questioning whether David De Gea is a legend of this club or not. And let me tell you, I'm not having any of it. I am not having any of that bullshit. I mean, you might want him to go or you might want him to stay. It doesn't matter what you want with De Gea, but whether you like it or not, David De Gea is and will always be a legend at Manchester United. 12 years, the man has created a legacy. I mean, it's so funny how short memories of people in football these days are. I mean, the recency bias is just unreal. I mean, just a while ago, the guy was, he was saving us season after season from ending up in the bottom half of the English Premier League. Without De Gea, I can at least see about 4 or 5 seasons where we would have probably finished 10th or 12th or something like what Chelsea did, That's what we would have done if it wasn't for David De Gea. The man's been excellent at what he's doing. He's been an absolutely brilliant servant. And what has Manchester United done? I mean, the whole treatment of David De Gea by our club has been disgraceful. It's so sad to see. A player who's given so much for this club, who's done so much for this club, has been brought down to this sort of hate and this sort of treatment. And why? I'll tell you why. Only because the man does not hold an English passport. He's got a Spanish passport, and that is why he's receiving the treatment he is. I don't see this happening to an English player leaving Manchester United, no matter how much you hate him. But David De Gea does not have an English passport, so that treatment has been disgraceful. Manchester United, again, this is another prime example of how terrible the negotiations of our club is. The people up there, the whole circus that they have created inside this club. I mean, Manchester United have assumed, where like, oh, David De Gea is a done deal. Like, he's going to put pen to paper. They've just assumed that. They've assumed that, that's a done deal, and have not bothered with his contracts, and have not have delayed those contract talks so much initially. And now David, thinking that, David De Gea is going to stay, or maybe he has no other options, but he does. Apparently, he's in negotiations with Saudi, according to reports, and they're willing to offer him a lot of money. And I don't blame him now for thinking about it and not wanting to sign the contract. I know it's not done yet. There are a lot of reports that do suggest that this is the end for David De Gea and he's leaving, but it's still not done yet. However, it does seem very likely now that David De Gea might leave. And I don't blame him with the treatment he's got from the club. You're offering him a contract of reduced wages, and you're not even guaranteeing him a number one spot. The least you can do is go about this negotiation with, more planning, more organization, with more respect towards that player. That's the least you can do. And if you don't even do that, I don't see why should he stay back at the club. Obviously, he's going to want to leave, right? Because he's not getting the wages he wants. He's got an offer with a lot of heavier wages. A lot of the criticism that he gets from his own fans, the mainstream media, the journalists, the agenda that everybody seems to now have, with David De Gea. And also with some of the ex-players of this own club who've come out openly and have, been so vocal and, so against David De Gea, when I don't see the same sort of energy with players who are absolutely 10 times worse than David De Gea, and have like deemed David De Gea as the number one problem of our football club. I understand, like I said, the sentiment of, wanting a modern keeper and, why we need to move forward. I understand that, but I do not agree with the opinion that he is our number one problem. Absolutely not. And now the whole saga of David De Gea has caused Ten Hag to now have to change his transfer plans. Manchester United were not looking, Ten Hag was not looking to end up spending about 50 or 70 million on a goalkeeper. Because there are about, if you only have 200 million pounds, you can't go spend 100 million on Harry Kane, about 50 odd million for Mason Mount, about 70 million for Caicedo, and still go and spend 70 million for a keeper. You cannot do that. But now, with everything that's going on, and if David De Gea leaves, Manchester United will have to go big for a keeper, because you cannot have the season with Dean Henderson or Jordan Pickford as your number one. And I mean, that could happen. Specifically given that, we need to meet the homegrown quota, and with certain outgoings, we might not hit that quota, and we might end up with probably keeping Dean Henderson or Jordan Pickford because they might be cheaper than Onana or Costa. Or if we end up going for Onana or Costa, now they're going to cost us so much that might impact our budget for a striker or a midfielder, which I feel is more of a priority right now than a goalkeeper. We did not lose our last season, points in our last season, or we did not have a lot of issues with the defense last season. I agree, David De Gea did make a few mistakes in a few odd games. The final, definitely a big one. I completely get that. But I also believe that the man has he's saved more points for us this season than he's lost. And not to mention, the man actually has won the Golden Glove. Some of the hate that this guy gets is just, it's criminal. It's a disgrace. And what's even worse is letting him go for free. That should tell you the circus we are as a club. I mean, David De Gea is not 35 or 37. He's still 32. That's still not too old for a goalkeeper. And we're going to let him go for free. I mean, it's just, I don't even know where to go with this, but I'm not having any of this hate with David De Gea. If he does leave the club, I will wish him all the best. And, for his future, if he goes to Saudi, I will definitely be supporting the club that he plays for in Saudi. Because the man will always be a legend at this club. And I hope he has all the success and a better future than the past few years that he's got at our club. So, like we said, with David De Gea, he was not a part of Manchester United's retained list for the next year. And as I explained why that is. But on the other hand, we have Mason Greenwood, who has been put on that list. Now that again has created a lot of sparks in social media. I mean, that's upset a lot of people, and I completely understand that. But again, this fact that Mason Greenwood his name has been put in the retained players of Manchester United does not exactly mean that United have concluded their investigation and are going ahead with keeping him. It doesn't mean that. It just basically means that he's still under contract with Manchester United, and right now, until a decision is made, he's still a Manchester United player, so he is on that list, and we'll see what happens with him in the future. Also with Mason Mount, so Manchester United, we did put in a £40 million bid for Mason Mount, which was rejected, which I think we did expect it to be rejected because Chelsea has been hell-bent on wanting a £70 million. However, Manchester United don't want to pay anything more than 50 or 60 million pounds. So the first bid was rejected. However, Manchester United are preparing a second bid according to reports, which is going to be around 50 million pounds, and they don't intend to go any further or any higher than that. I mean, Mason Mount is expected to leave Chelsea on a free next year if talks do not progress, or if talks with Manchester United fall down. That's what the news is coming in. So either United do get him for about 50, 60, the price range that they're looking for, or Manchester United will have to walk away, like we did walk away from Harry Kane. We will have to walk away from Mason Mount as well, because again, it makes no sense paying that sort of fees, £70 million for a midfielder who's got just 1 year left on his contract, and we can get him for free next year. So yeah, now in terms of the transfers, it seems that most of our targets, at least the first choice targets, are all going away. They're all being snapped up by other clubs. So what does that leave us with? I still believe we might get the Mason Mount deal done. We might, that still looks more likely. I think, I even believe that Rasmus Højlund is somebody that Manchester United will end up signing, but definitely not for the €100 million evaluation that Atlanta has suddenly sprung up with. So in terms of incomings, I think it's probably going to be Rasmus Højlund, Mason Mount, Rabiot. As much as I hate to say it, I would not want this, but that seems more and more likelier now, with David De Gea likely to go, and having to spend like a massive chunk of our budget on a goalkeeper. I see us, obviously we're gonna have to take that hit somewhere, and it looks like it's either gonna be in the midfield or the striker department. So yeah, we might end up going for Rabiot because he's free. Now that's the sort of deals I don't want, but that's the sort of deals you're gonna get this summer. And we only have two people to blame. The Glazers and Sir Jim Ratcliffe. It's where we are right now. And I mean, with the goalkeeping situation, that's a scary one. I mean, because I do not want Dean Henderson or Jordan Pickford. Imagine that. Imagine your entire next year season with Dean Henderson or Jordan Pickford as your number one goalkeeper. It's going to be a long ass season. Let me tell you that. It is going to be a long ass season if we end up having Dean Henderson or Jordan Pickford as our number one goalkeeper. Now, I personally prefer Onana, if not Onana, Costa, but like I said, we have no clue about the budget, so it looks more likely that we might go for a cheaper option, which is something that I don't want. Definitely not Dean Henderson or Jordan Pickford. So it's looking really bleak and scary. I mean, I personally really hope that Manchester United can convince David De Gea to stay, because having him stay with us for at least another year while we bring in somebody else who can compete with him for that first spot for about at least 1 year, where, having David De Gea pass on all his experience that he's gathered over the 12 years as to how to be Manchester United's number one. That experience, that knowledge, it'll be priceless. That knowledge that he can pass on to whoever comes in as the next goalkeeper, that would be priceless. That is what I would ideally want to happen. I mean, we're letting go of that and we're letting him go for free, so it's a disaster. But again, let's see. I mean, I personally hope that we do end up, we can convince him to stay for a season and we can get a goalkeeper that can probably, work under him a year as an understudy, and then we can move David De Gea on the right way with the right respect that he deserves, and have the other guy come in and be our number one. Because let me tell you, being Manchester United's number one is not an easy job. So hats off and salute to David De Gea for having done a fantastic job for 12 long years. And I wish him all the best. So guys, with that, I think that's it for today's show. I've had a wonderful time. I've really enjoyed this show. Very interesting stuff. And if you guys enjoyed the content and the show as well, please like the video, hit that subscribe button, turn those notifications on, because we will be getting a lot more content in the future. So I hope you guys have a lovely evening. Thank you for watching.